Hi, welcome back to the Athena Protocol, where today my co-host is Ricky's butt. Maybe you'll get to see the front side of him. It's a lot cuter. All right, chapter 8 starts on page 110. I have a mouthful of dirt, damp earth, and pine needles. I fight to twist my way out, but my attacker has legs on either side of me and an arm on my head, and I can't move. Feeling paralyzed sets me off into panic, but somewhere in my head there's a sense of the familiar. The look of the hands that are grasping mine, the scent of the person on top of me. My brain makes a connection. I stop resisting and wait, suddenly realizing who it is. Slowly, Hala releases the pressure of her arm, so I can move my head to look at her. I missed you, I say. My face hits the dirt again. Okay, maybe there was just a hint of sarcasm in that comment. Let go of me, I try, but it comes out a garbled mess with my mouth against the forest floor. But suddenly Hala's grip softens again, and it's almost easy for me to twist and cuff her off of me entirely. I sit up. What are you doing here? I ask, spitting a few times to get rid of the dirt in my mouth. I just landed a microdrone on that van, she says. They're fighting over a bone. Good girl. Okay. I get it now. She'll get a camera the size of an insect right into the middle of Gregory's facility and get video footage of what's happening inside, and all by remote control from her phone. But even as I catch a glimpse of Hala's screen, the picture from that drone cuts out. All she has is lines of static, no video at all. She looks at me, alarmed. They must have a scrambler, I say. She nods, and I hurry to follow her because she's already taken off, heading toward the hospital. What are you doing? Is that it? Hala asks, ignoring the question and pointing to an antenna that's perched high on top of the wall that surrounds the place. Probably. We've dropped our voices to a whisper because we're close enough now to hear the low sounds of the guards talking on the other side of the wall. I'm thinking about how we can jam the signal on the scrambler, or, failing that, try to get the drone out of range, when I see that Hala is already scaling the wall, finding tiny foot and handholds in the crumbling brick. Are you nuts? I hiss in a whisper that she can't hear, because she's already 20 feet up. It's breathtaking to watch, but I also feel like she's climbing to her death. Those guards are right there, on the other side, decked out with machine guns. A laugh bubbles up as they tease each other about something. Hala's at the top of the wall, hanging there with ease, like she's relaxing on the beach. But she can't reach up and disable that scrambler without the guards seeing her if they so much as glance up. She looks down at me. I spread my hands, like, what does she want me to do? Hala takes a small ball from her jacket and drops it down to me. It's a tiny smoke ball that disintegrates after use, so it leaves no trace, not to mention being environmentally friendly. Okay, not a bad plan. I take a few paces back, then run and fling the ball over the wall as hard and far as I can. Hala peers over, and I stand below her, waiting. Then, there's some commotion. The guards must have noticed a stream of smoke issuing up out of nowhere, and they head toward it, their voices receding from us. Hala shoots me her happy look, almost indistinguishable from a frown on anyone else, and swings herself onto the antenna, hanging off it while she opens a panel holding wires. Using a cutter, she clips them, then rips out the electronic board inside for good measure. The antenna creaks and buckles from her weight, but lightly, Hala jumps back to the wall and starts to descend, the worn bricks crumbling under her feet. She falls the last few feet, and I help her up. We run back into the trees and crouch together to check the screen on her phone. The signal is back, and for a moment, Hala pilots the drone deeper into the hospital till it reaches a ward. Old metal beds, torn curtains, and women lying there, some on drips. It's like something out of a horror movie. But now, I'm getting a weird feeling from Hala herself, like she's watching me as much as the footage. I don't feel good about it. Why did you jump on me when I first got here? I ask her. She doesn't reply, and in my gut, I know the answer. I take off, run for it, like crazy. I glance over my shoulder to see where Hala is, and I stop running, because she has a gun out, and it's pointed at me. I'm speechless. Almost. You must be joking, I say. Hala doesn't answer, but she has enough grace to look a little bit sheepish. Put it down, I say, but she doesn't. It's only tranquilizer darts, she says. Like that makes it much better. That I'm staring down the barrel of something that won't kill me. It'll only sedate me as if I'm a mad dog. In a way, I'd like it better if it were a real gun because the chances of Hala shooting me dead are 0. But with this thing, who knows if she's stressed enough to go ahead and pull the trigger. Hala, I ask, we're friends, right? Her dark eyes waver, but she doesn't look friendly, only angry. I have orders to bring you in if I find you. So you just do what you're told, no matter what? That's what an order is, Hala snaps in an undertone. You broke orders and killed Ahmed, and you broke us up as a team. She's right. I raise my hands and walk slowly toward her, defeated. Put it down. I'll come in with you. Hala looks relieved, but doesn't actually drop the dart gun. Do you have a car? I ask her. Motorbike. Do you really want to haul my drugged body all the way to your bike and drive me unconscious through the streets of Belgrade? I reach her and push the gun gently aside and then wait while Hala holsters it. I even offer to carry her backpack for her because that's what friends do, but she declines. We walk back toward where her bike is, which is very near mine. Not surprising, as we both must have taken the same path in. And then I drop back a pace and deliver an almighty chop to the back of her knees. While she's still down, kneeling in the dirt, I come around to her front and deliver a couple more blows. I literally hate doing it, but she hasn't given me much of an option. A 1-2 punch to her solar plexus and then an upward push from her stomach to her ribs wins her. That's all I want to do, buy some time to escape. She lies there, gasping for breath, and for a moment I hesitate. In any other universe, I'd be helping her, not hurting her. I'm sorry, I tell her, and I mean it. I run hard to my motorcycle, kicking it on and roaring out of there as fast as I can. As I ride back toward the center of town, something occurs to me. I veer off into the tower blocks, and when I can't see anyone around, I pull up next to one of those big rubbish dumpsters. I take off my beautiful, broken-in jacket, empty the pockets, and toss it inside, just in case Hala has thought to stick a tracking device on me. Amber's team makes everything so transparent and wafer-thin that I don't trust I'll find anything just by patting myself down. Back at the apartment, I get into bed, but I'm too keyed up to sleep. All I can think about is Hala, out there, gasping in the forest. And the way I lied to her so I could catch an element of surprise against her. It's not doing wonders for my self-esteem, but the alternative is to be waking up in the Athena house a couple of hours from now with a bloodstream full of drugs and 0 control over my destiny. I switch on the TV. They're playing an old movie dubbed into Serbian, and I finally drift into sleep. I wake just after 8 a.m., blinking and gritty-eyed. The television is still on. I flick it off and reach for my laptop and my new morning routine of scanning the local newspapers online. The only thing worth translating this morning is a profile piece on Alex Uchik. The article is about how many arrests he's managed since becoming justice minister, though there's a snide paragraph about how the gangsters he's rounded up so far are small-timers. But it all bodes well for the job that Peggy has lined up for him, bringing Gregory Pavlik, the biggest gangster of them all, to justice. When I go into the gallery this time, I don't head straight for the coffee area at the far end. Instead, I move slowly from exhibit to exhibit, pausing before each piece of photography and examining it. The prints are a series of city scenes, highly treated, saturated with color in a way that seems to have sapped the life out of them without replacing it with any other meaning. Maybe it's art, or maybe it's someone trying a bit too hard. While I'm looking, I run through the coming conversation with Paulina in my mind. How she might begin it, how it could end. It's a habit I've had for a long time now, playing out a situation in my head. I first started to do it when I was nervous to see my mother again after Kit had been away for weeks, when I wanted to seem confident and funny, not nerdy and intense, a daughter who Kit would appreciate and who she might regret not being with more. Sometimes it worked, but after a while I began to resent the fact that Kit was still always away, and I stopped trying so hard to please her. When I'm done with the exhibit, I swing my bag off my shoulder, drop it onto a chair, and sit down. Finally, I look over at the coffee bar. Paulina is using a remote control to flick through silent TV channels on the big flat screen above the bar while a waitress ties on a black apron and prepares to come over to serve me. With her eyes still on the screen, Paulina says something to the waitress, and the girl stops in her tracks. Paulina goes over to the coffee machine and throws me a smile. While she makes the coffee, I look out the window, counting passers-by to focus myself. Soon enough, Paulina's standing before me, and I half rise to take the cup she offers. Your macchiato. Thank you. You didn't have to make it yourself. But I don't want you to terrify the staff. Paulina's eyes smile. I'm sorry about yesterday, I say. You were more relaxed at the bar. It was good to see you. I nod my agreement, and she sits down at my table while I take a sip of the coffee. I feel like I did all the talking last night, she begins. I want to know more about you. It flashes into my mind that Paulina might not just be making conversation. What if she suspected my motives yesterday and spent the past 12 hours using Gregory's highly evolved network of Eastern European tech geniuses to trace my true identity? What if she knows that, far from being a graduate student, I work for a rogue organization that is now dedicating all its resources to taking down her father? I blink and try to focus on Paulina's eyes, which are smiling at me. What's your subject at university? Paulina asks kindly. Maybe she's used to people behaving like nervous idiots in front of her. Electronic engineering, I say, recovering myself. I like circuits and wires and computer code. Wow, that's impressive, she says, and it feels like she means it. I reach into my bag and bring out a small gift wrap package. She hesitates, confused. To say thank you for the coffee yesterday, I say, and the drinks. Although I originally arranged this gift with an ulterior motive, it turns out I'm genuinely happy to be giving it to Paulina. She lifts up the tape, edging back the wrapping paper as carefully as if she might use it again one day, and lifts out a book of photography. I watch her fingers caress the dust jacket and then open the book gently, as if the pages might be made of glass. She looks up at me. It's really beautiful. I'm glad you like it. The moment feels awkward somehow, and I glance away to the pictures on the walls. Who are your favorite photographers? I ask. She names a few people, none of whom I've heard of, and I ask her a little more about how she became so passionate about it. It's clear she knows a lot about photography and art. The conversation comes to a natural pause. Here's my opportunity. I steel myself. Why don't we have a drink tonight? My voice is low, so the waitress can't hear me, nor the older couple who have just strolled in for coffee. Paulina meets my gaze. I can't. I would have, but it's fine, I say lightly. Funnily enough, I still feel disappointed, even though I know very well that she is busy tonight. Paulina seems anxious to explain. I have to be at my father's birthday party. You don't say. I try to appear uninterested and take a sip of water. Sounds nice and quiet. There's a bit of teasing in my tone, and Paulina gives me a half smile. My father is lacking in a lot of things, but he knows how to throw a party, she says. I look unconvinced. That's great. Have you heard of Kit Love? Paulina asks, apparently intent on defending the family honor. She's pretty good, and loud. Who? I ask. Paulina shakes her head indulgently at my ignorance. Come as my guest tonight. I look appalled at the idea. Seriously? No, I wouldn't crash a family birthday. You won't be crashing. I shake my head again, brushing her off. Really, trust me, she says, working hard to convince me. It's me, my father, and 500 of his closest friends. He won't even notice you. You have to. Paulina touches my hand gently, as if to stop me from protesting. Does she have any idea how I feel when she touches me? I look at her and I realize, yes, she does. She smiles, and I nod hesitantly, accepting her invitation. Paulina's eyes are clear and direct, and yet I can't read them right now. For a moment, I wonder if I've opened the door to more trouble than I can handle, getting myself invited to Gregory's party where my mother is the headline act. But the thought flies out of my head as quickly as dust in a breath of wind. I have what I wanted. I make plans to meet Paulina back here this evening and go with her to her father's house, and then I head out to the state registry, where I'm hoping that they finally found my files. I'm going to go ahead and read Chapter 9 too. Dealing with government departments anywhere in the world is a big pain, but the Public Records Office here is something else. It's been over an hour since I went up to a metal counter that looks like a relic from the 60s and communicated my request to the clerk. She's 100 years old if she's a day, but with her hair dyed platinum blonde and a cigarette stuck in the side of her mouth. She keeps me hanging around forever, even though I had an appointment. The place smells like boiled cabbage, and there are a few people in and out, but it's hardly overrun. While I'm sitting there, I start thinking about all the births and deaths and marriages that have been registered here. Millions of them over generations, just for this little city in this tiny country. Babies being born, screaming for air, learning to walk, going through school, falling in love, having more babies, working like mad to pay a mortgage and food bills, and then dying. It makes me wonder if I'd ever want to have children. I'd want to be someone they could look up to and trust, not like Gregory with Paulina, though he probably thinks he's giving her a good life, and on some level she must love him, even if she wants to break away. Thinking about Paulina and Gregory makes me think about my father, except there's a big vacuum where that thought should be. At first, meaning for the first 15 years of my life, Kit told me that he died when I was 2. I had a whole story about him in my head that I built on when I was a kid. I used to picture him to myself as a long-haired hippie type of guy who played guitar and who'd had a quick fling on the road before dying of an unspecified illness, probably due to him being a sensitive, poetic soul in love with a self-absorbed music star who'd flung him aside. This definitely made it easier at school when it was time for us to make Father's Day cards. I always made a card for my mother instead and got the silent sympathy vote for my teachers. And that, if you can believe it, was Kit's justification for using that lie my entire life. She lied to make it easier for me. What she really meant was to make it easier for her. When I was 15, I got fixated on the idea that I wanted to see his grave. Kit evaded it for a while, tried to avoid the subject, but then I tracked down my own birth certificate, and there it was, a big blank in the space for my father's name, after which Kit admitted that my father wasn't dead at all, that he had been married at the time to someone who wasn't Kit, clearly, and that she had never told him about me. To say I was upset is a bit of an understatement. I didn't talk to her for a week. The deceit drove me crazy. That all my life she had lied to me and only crumbled and told the truth when I pushed it, not because it was the right thing to do. I've worked myself up into such a fury about Kit that I miss my name being called by the clerk. She has to practically yell at me to get my attention, and I jump up and take the folder she's handed me. They are files on the two directors of the holding company linked to Gregory Pavlik, the 2 my research suggested might possibly still be alive. Inside the thin cardboard covers, there's nothing much on the Russian guy, Mikhail Rostov, but there is a birth certificate and social security number and basic information for the woman director, Katerina Volin. From the certificate, I calculate that she's 23, so it could actually be the same person I saw on Facebook. But could she really be the 3rd director? I asked the clerk if there isn't another record under the same name, but she insists that's the only one. I snap a picture of the birth certificate, address, and other information with my phone, hand back the file, and get out of there. The address is in an old part of the city, in an area of tiny little houses packed together. At least some of them are painted, and a few have flower pots on the window ledges. It takes me a while to find the right place because street names around here seem to be hit or miss. Kit's always lecturing me about the law of attraction. Visualize something, and it will happen over time. So when I knock on the door, I imagine the girl, this mystery director of the Russian shell company, flinging open the door and speaking perfect English. What I actually get is a man who might be around 50, but who looks older just because he's so desperately sick. Pale, ashy skin and flyaway hair. He stares out at me and the sound of his every breath hangs between us, a series of painful-sounding wheezes. Before I can say anything, he's pulled away from the door, and a plump, tired-looking woman takes his place. The man shuffles back into a living room with a patterned carpet and a small oxygen tank sitting next to his flowery armchair. He probably has emphysema, though he still keeps a pack of cigarettes on the side table. His wife seems pleasant enough, but she rattles off a question in Serbian. "I'm looking for Katerina," I say in English. "I'm a friend of hers." I'm not sure she understands, but speaking in English is helping me, I think. At least she must figure I'm not police or the tax authorities. "Katerina, friend?" she repeats. I nod encouragingly. "Do you have her address?" Nothing. "Where's her house?" I try. The mother, because I'm assuming this is her mother, hesitates. "You have work for Katerina?" she asks. I look at her. Her eyes are hopeful. "Yes," I say. The woman disappears, leaving the door open. The father turns a bit in his chair and looks at me balefully. I venture a smile, but he just turns back to the TV. The sounds of game show buzzers and applause floats out at me. Katerina's mother comes back with a piece of paper on which an address is neatly written in scrolled letters, the kind they must have taught in school 40 years ago. I smile and thank her. Then she steps back as if to welcome me in and says something else, making a tea-drinking motion with one hand. I thank her, but point at my watch to suggest that I have to hurry. Disappointed, she stands at the door and waves while I get back onto the motorcycle. I wave back and head off before stopping farther down the road to tap the address into my navigation system. Katerina lives quite away from here, over in New Belgrade. I haven't been wandering around this section of town for long before I figure out it's where the prostitutes work. Maybe Gregory Pavlik has a setup here, but it certainly doesn't look like the place in which a legitimate company director would be hanging out. But then this is a shell company, an obvious front for something dodgy, something to do with that Russian clinic. I walk through a warren of urine-scented alleyways that pass between gray blocks of government housing. Empty beer cans decorate the streets here, and even the ever-present graffiti looks less skillfully applied. The address I want leads into an open doorway where a sheet of paper is taped to the wall with an arrow that points up the staircase ahead. Above the arrow is written a word in Serbian, and below that, the word service is smudged in smudged orange marker. I guess they don't want to miss out on the international clientele. As I pause at the foot of the stairs, I hear a clicking sound. Behind me, an old lady is sweeping the steps in the opposite doorway. She wears a headscarf patterned with yellow daisies, a bit of freshness in this depressing place, but she regards me with suspicion, clicking her tongue again, disapproving. Quickly, I head up the concrete steps, taking them two at a time. I'm freaked out, to tell you the truth. I've never been in a place like this before, and I'm not sure what to expect. Turning left into a tiny hallway, I find the right door. It has a splintered edge that I touch as I knock. I focus on the rough shards of broken wood under my fingertips as, again, I try to picture Katerina coming to the threshold and having a nice chat. The door opens, and there's a huge man standing there. He's not just tall, but also wide, shaped like a squat refrigerator. This visualizing thing is not happening for me. "Is Katerina here?" I ask. The man just looks at me. "I'm a friend of hers," I say. The great thing about being a girl my age is that no one ever sees you as a threat, or, in this case, as a customer. He holds out a paw-like hand to indicate that I should stay put. Then he leaves the door ajar and lumbers back into the apartment. When he returns, someone is with him. With a careless flick of her wrist, a young woman draws him back and steps onto the threshold. She's not that much older than me, but it feels like she's seen a lot more of life than I have. She's wrapped in an indigo polyester robe that stops just above the knee. Her dark, tousled hair falls over eyes that are still hazy with sleep. "Katerina?" I ask. "Who are you?" she says, having acknowledged her name with a quick nod of her head. "My name is Daisy," I say, thinking about the flowers on the headscarf of the old lady sweeping down below. "Can I have a few minutes to ask you something?" "Journalist?" Katerina asks. Her eyes rake over me. "No, I promise, I'll only take 5 minutes." I try to look young and clueless and friendly. I don't have to act the first two, but it's not having much impact. "I can pay you for your time," I try. That seems to do the trick. Katerina motions me inside. I follow her down the thin hallway, past the living room where the bear-like man slumps in an armchair in front of a TV playing cartoons. We veer left and into Katerina's room. The wallpaper is striped maroon and gold, and the bed covers, so recently thrown back, are also maroon, with satin edging. In one corner there's a low armchair, and in another a floor lamp casts a warm pool of light. Katerina sits down tiredly on the bed. I perch on the chair and try to think of a conversational way in. "Your mother gave me your address," I say. "Why?" Katerina asks crisply. "So much for a chat about the parents, then." "I told you I had work for you." I told her I had work for you. "Do you?" "No," I reply, "but I will pay you for your time." This makes Katerina laugh, and her laugh dissolves into a cough that sounds like the residue of 1,000 cheap cigarettes. I'm feeling out of my depth here. I can't gauge her at all. I decide to plow on and see what happens. I take out 2 50-pound notes and reach across to leave them on the table beside the bed. "You want only to talk?" says Katerina. Yes, please. Then this money is too much. I appreciate the honesty, but I leave the cash where it is. Do you know a company called Lovett? I start. Katerina shakes her head, and I believe her. You're listed as a director of the company. Katerina shifts slightly. I never hear of it, she says. Have you heard of Gregory Pavlik? I ask. She shrugs the question off, but this time I know she's lying. She picks up a pack of cigarettes and takes one out. She offers me one, and I refuse. I watch her light up and drag on it, and I think about her father dying of emphysema in front of a TV game show. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's smoking. You stink, your clothes reek, your mouth tastes like an ashtray, and then you die an early and painful death. Awesome marketing from tobacco companies, though. You have to give them their due. You know Gregory Pavlik, I say. Katerina sighs. You're stupid, she tells me. Pavlik will kill you if you write about him. I'm not a journalist. She shrugs again. I don't know Pavlik, and I don't want to know him, she says, and she turns her head away from me. I'm beginning to get ticked off. Everybody here knows him, I say. Katerina sighs again and looks at her watch. His guys are always around, she offers. Do they give you any trouble? I'm not worth it for them. There are many girls who are young and stupid enough to buy their stories. What stories? I ask. The usual. They sell dreams. Money, champagne, rich guys in fancy nightclubs. As she talks, Katerina uses the nail of her right thumb to chip away at the black varnish on her left hand. It seems like a losing battle to me, but it's probably a nervous habit. And they fall for that? Katerina looks at me sharply. For the first time, her eyes take me in properly. My clothes, my shoes. Hardly high-end, but not cheap either. When you're 15, she says, with no job and a boyfriend who beats you, you fall for anything. That shuts me up. Katerina looks down and continues picking at her nail polish until tiny black splinters fall onto the sheets. I'm not sure what to do next, except try hinting at the half-formed theory that's been bugging me since I found that website with the designer babies on it. Pavlik is doing something new, I say. Just from the way she glances up, I feel like I'm onto something. I wait, because Peggy once told me that, given a silence, most people will fill it up. But Katerina apparently hasn't read that page in Peggy's Ivy League etiquette manual. She just gives me a good long stare, then carries on tormenting her nails. He's harvesting eggs from these girls, isn't he? She seems almost relieved at that. Why would she be relieved to hear that Gregory is taking eggs from these women? They like it better, she says. No sex work. Just take fertility drugs and give the eggs. What does he do with the eggs? Katerina looks up. How do I know? Probably sells them. To Russia? Katerina's eyes catch mine, but she says nothing. The company you're a director of is Russian, and it has something to do with the Victory Clinic near Moscow. Katerina stands up, stubs out her cigarette, and hands me back the cash I left her. I refuse to take it. I stand up too, planting myself in the room. What's she gonna do? Throw me out? Then I remember the enormous guy in the other room. I change tack. Please, Katerina, I say. A lot of money is going through this company suddenly. What for? I am a little taller than her, and stronger, but I try not to intimidate her. Do you work for Pavlik? I ask. She sticks to a stubborn silence. Katerina, there are a lot of girls in trouble. You can help them. And whatever's going on, when it comes out, you'll be the one in jail. It's your name on that company. More silence, but I can feel her caving. Whether from the goodness of her heart or the idea of rotting in a Serbian prison, I don't know, and don't care. Pavlik let me go, she says. He liked me. First, I was one of those girls, in the nightclubs. I made friends with big politician, married guy, for Gregory to take pictures of us together. And I told him what this politician told me. It helped Gregory. So he helped me. He paid for my father's hospital treatment, and he told me he will not use me anymore, only my name, for a business. So why are you still working here? I ask. I'm not trying to offend her, but the idea of this young, fragile girl in this room with a succession of customers stresses me out. I'm good at this job, she says with a short laugh. I feel nauseous suddenly and oppressed. I look at the window while I think. I can't figure out why she's told me all this. Beyond the net curtain, a thin branch curls past, touching the glass, and a little brown bird lands on it. The living creature feels out of place here, where everything else feels dead. I turn to Katerina again. She leans her head back against the wall and adjusts her robe back over her thigh. So, the new business in Russia is selling eggs to infertile couples? I don't know what Pavlik is doing. Her voice rises, and it sounds like panic. But he is the devil. Trafficking is not enough. Eggs, not enough. He wants more. Like what? But she just stands up and opens the bedroom door. You want some service? She asks, matter of fact. You paid a lot. That takes me by surprise. No, thanks, I reply, polite. I come out to the hallway. Katerina's voice calls out an instruction in Serbian. I assume she's asking Meathead to escort me out, but instead he lumbers into Katerina's room. He's gone for maybe 20 seconds before he emerges and moves down the hallway to where I stand. He hands me a business card, a thin, dog-eared scrap with an outline of a naked woman on it, and a phone number. I step out into the concrete stairwell, confused and a bit depressed by the whole incident. As I reach the bottom of the steps, I'm relieved that the old lady with the daisy scarf and the broom has gone. I look down at Katerina's card, and as I turn it, I see black ink scrawled across the back. Quickly, I read. She's written down an address, here in Belgrade, along with a time, 3 a.m. I look back up at the dingy windows, and they stare back at me blankly. I tuck the card into my pocket and walk away as fast as I can. The end of Chapter 9. We will pick up with Chapter 10 in the next video. I hope you're enjoying the book. That's all for now. Bye.